Okay, boys and girls, we've been learning about how stories can give us information. And this is an expository that's talking about fossils. The title of the story is called Fossils, Tales of Long Ago. I believe you pronounce it either by Alakai or Alikai. Ooh, have you ever seen a fossil before? Turn to your neighbor and tell them if you have a text-to-self connection. All right, let's go ahead and begin. Get the pages turned here. Ooh, look at that. Creatures in the ocean. Let's take a look and see what it says. Once upon a time, a huge fish was swimming around when along came a smaller fish. The big fish was so hungry it swallowed up the other fish whole. The big fish died and sank to the bottom of the sea. Look at there. This happened 90 million years ago. How do we know? We know because the fish turned to stone. The fish became a fossil. A plant or an animal that is turned to stone is called a fossil. Have you seen a fossil before, friends? Scientists can tell how old stones are. They can also tell how old the fish fossil was. So scientists can know the age of a fossil. How did the fish become a fossil? Most plants and animals do not become fossils when they die. Some rot. That friend says, P-U-E. Others dry up, crumble, and blow away. No trace of them is left. This could happen to the big fish. We would have never known how it lived. Instead, the fish became a fossil. And this is how it happened. Ooh, so I think the book is going to give us information on how fossils are formed. Let's keep reading. When the big fish died, it sank into the mud at the bottom of the sea. Slowly, the soft parts of the fish rotted away. Only its hard bones were left. The bones of the fish had eaten were left too. The skeleton of the fish lay buried and protected in the deep mud. So it was protected from the elements in the deep mud. Let's look, see how it went down. The stuff rised up, and then it was protected. Look at that, how the layers of mud is above the fish. Do you see how the pictures tell us stories too? Thousands of years went by. More layers of mud covered the fish. Tons and tons of mud piled up. After a long time, the surface of the earth had changed. The sea where the fish was buried dried out. The weight of the layers of mud pressed down. Slowly the mud turned to rock. As this happened, groundwater seeped through the changing layers of mud. Minerals were dissolved in the water, and the water seeped into all the tiny holes of the fish bones. The minerals in the water were left behind in the fish bones. After a very long time, the bones turned to stone, and the fish was now a fossil. So something happened, the elements changed, and as it came in, it helped preserve the fish's bones, and it became a fossil. And scientists can learn from the fossils. Some fossils, like fish, are actual parts of plants or animals that have turned to stone. Sometimes a fossil is only an imprint of a plant or animal. Millions of years ago, a leaf fell off a fern-like plant. It dropped onto a swampy forest soil. It's called peat. The leaf rotted away, but left no mark of its shape in the peat. The peat, with its imprint of the leaf, had hardened. It became a rock called coal. Coal is a fossil too. And look, here's some examples here. And it says, peat is made up of mushy, rotted leaves. We use peat in the garden to make our plants grow. And I have a text-to-self connection. We actually use that in our garden as well. So fossils are useful for us. Look how perfect the leaf looks. Lots of other things have been found in coal, even dinosaurs. This shell was buried whole, but scientists split the rock and the shell crumbled away. This is only an imprint. Here's the other half. Wow, so it's kind of like a time capsule of our history, of Earth's history. Scientists study this to learn more about our history. Ooh, wow. Can you tell me what this is a picture of? Wow. Could you imagine if you were walking along and saw those footprints? These are dinosaur tracks. They were made fresh in the mud 115 million years ago. Sand filled the dinosaurs' footprints in the mud. Oh, there's that word again. Mud. The sand hardened into a rock called a sandstone. Millions of years later, fossil hunters dug through the rock. They found fossil tracks, exact prints of the dinosaur's foot. Wow. Can you imagine what it would sound like or how fast a dinosaur might walk? Not all fossils are found in stone. Some are found frozen in the frozen ground in the Arctic. The ancient mammoth was a kind of elephant. It froze to death thousands of years ago. The grass it had been eating was still in its mouth. Could you imagine? And this says the famous mammoth was found accidentally in 1901 in Siberia. So we've talked about mud, preserving it, and also ice. It says part of it was showing through the melted ice. Scientists found pounds of grass and moss in its stomach. The mammoth was fresh enough to eat. I wouldn't dare. A million years ago, a fly was caught in a sticky sap of a tree. The sap had hardened and became a fossil called amber. Amber looks like yellow glass. The fly was perfectly preserved in the amber. Wow, this book has given us a lot of information. When insects have been preserved in amber too, other insects have been preserved in amber too. It says, my mother has an amber necklace. Here's the fly. Here's a spider. Ants, a cockroach. They all got stuck in the sticky sap. We've learned many things from the fish, fern, fly, and the dinosaur tracks. Fossils tells us about the past. What happened to the earth all that time ago? Fossils tell us once were forests or now are deserts. So look, 2 million years ago looks very different than today. Forest, desert. Fossils tell us there once was seas, now there's mountains. Wow. So do you see where we had the mountains? Long ago, that was actually underwater. These fossils of sea creatures were found on mountains. The earth has changed a lot since then. I wonder what it'll look like in the future. Many lands that are cold today were once warm. We find fossils of tropical plants in cold places. Look, that kind of looks like the fern that we were reading about earlier today. Fossils tell us about strange creatures that lived on the earth long ago. No such creatures are alive today. They have all died out. We say they are extinct. So here's examples of creatures that lived a long time ago, and the fossils will tell us a story about maybe what they'd eat and how they lived. How do they move around? And now they're no longer with us. They're extinct, but we can still learn about them. Some fossils are found by scientists who dig for them. Some fossils are found by accident. You too might find a fossil if you look hard. When you see a stone, look at it carefully. It might be a fossil of something that once lived inside. And these friends, look, it says, I found the fossil of a seahorse. Lucky, she says. It says you can find fossils in the woods too, or where they just dug a new road, or up in the mountains. We saw fossils in our marble walls of a big building. Marble is polished limestone where many fossils have found. I want to find a fossil. How exciting would your heart be if you came across a fossil? Then you'd be like a real scientist. How would you like to make a fossil? Not 1 in a million year old fossil, but a 1 minute old fossil. Make a clay imprint of your hand. Flatten the clay, press it in your hand, and then lift your hand away. This imprint shows what your hand is like and the way a dinosaur track shows us in a footprint was like. It says my handprint. And Jean's making a joke. You old fossil, you. This is fun. Have you ever made your handprint in clay or Play-Doh? That's just like this dinosaur's footprint. Suppose when it dried out and you buried the clay imprint, suppose 1,000,000 years from now someone would find it. Your imprint would be as hard as stone. It would be a fossil of your hand. It would tell the finder something about you. It would tell something about your life on Earth 1,000,000 years earlier. It says, someone would know all about me, how big I am, how many fingers I have. And this little friend says, that I go to school and I take dance lessons and play the piano and sing along in books and read. And I love avocados. Ha 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 ha. Every time someone finds a fossil, we learn more about life on Earth long ago. Someday you might find a fossil, one that is millions and millions of years old. You may discover something no one knows today. And these friends are digging. She says, find anything yet? All right. Turn to a neighbor and tell them what's something new that you learned about fossils today.